Now, let's talk about project initiation. This is where you actually do the groundwork. Yes, this is where you do the groundwork and you see if actually this project is necessary. This project is irrelevant. Should we even engage into planning this project? Very, very important. Now, what does project initiation entails? In the initiation phase, the project is analyzed and you have to decide whether to do the project or not. At this level, you set the project mission. What is the project mission? Why do you want the project? You break down the mission. What are the project objectives? What do you want to achieve? You list out what you want to achieve. What are the end results? The project deliverables. What are the project deliverables? The things that you have to like if it's about building a school or establishing a school, you know that you need to get a building, you need to get benches, you need to recruit teachers. These are the project deliverables. Okay. The project stakeholders. Who has interest in the project and what is their interest in their project in the project? I'll learn all of them. Now, before you get to even plan a project at the initiation phase, there are three very important things to consider. You have to assess the project's criticality. Assess the project's criticality in relation to its relevance in the survival of the company. There are projects that they are good, quite alright, but if they are not there, the company will still continue going. Yes. And in cases like if you have limited funds or limited finances, you might have to shun this project, you might have to cut them off. Such projects. Projects that you know if they are not executed or they are not carried out, the organization it will not cause the organization any harm. You can cut them off. Yes. Equally, we have projects that they can be less expensive but very important to the survival of the organization. We execute them. We equally have projects that are very important and very important, very expensive and very important to the survival of the company. You execute them. So you should evaluate the criticality of the project. Come together with your team or ask yourselves, what if we didn't execute this project? What other product is there in the market that is already serving that we have that is already serving the needs to which we are designing this product to meet? If we then execute this project, what will we be losing? That is project criticality. Evaluate that, assess that. Assess project complexity. How large is the project? How costly is the project? How long is the project? The project duration. How long is the project? How beneficial is the project? How risky is the project? So it is equally important for you as a project manager or the sponsor to understand the type of project that you are dealing with, because not all projects are the same. As I earlier said, some projects are costly and less important. Some projects are less costly and very important. Please let's take note of that. Equally, assess the challenge to capability. When we say the challenge to capability, we mean uh, within the organization, with your present resources, with your present personnel, your present financial resources, can you execute the project? Or do you need to hire extra resources to bring in extra resources? When your challenge to capability is low, your challenge to capability can either be high or low. When your challenge to capability is low, it means you have the skills, you have the staff and systems in-house to do the project. When your challenge to capability is high, it means we do not have the skills, staff, or service. So you need to find that from outside. You need to bring that in from outside. Normally, the Ministry of Public Contracts in Cameroon is supposed to be in charge of uh, executing projects or something. But most of the time, we find projects are being given to others, to to private companies for execution. In the military coup as well, they have the engineering coup, and projects are supposed to be executed by that engineering coup. What if they face a situation where the project they don't have the required technology to execute that project? They have to bring in an external organization to execute it. So your challenge to capability can either be high or it can be low. If your challenge to capability is low, know that it will be very easy and cheap for you to run the project. If it is high, it will be relatively expensive to run that project. You should equally assess the project requirements. Yes, assess the project requirements. Your project requirements can either be stable or evolving. When your project requirements are stable, it means you know exactly the needs. You know exactly the needs of the market. You've carried out a similar project before, and you know exactly what you'll be doing to deliver a similar or the same project again. But when your project requirements are evolving, it means that project has never existed in the market. You're bringing something new, and you might face some challenges, like you might be getting some equipment along the way. You see that they are no longer needed in one stage or the other. So it means your requirements are evolving. But when you know actually what your customers want, you've done it before, another organization has done it before, your partners have done it before, your requirements will be stable. Now, after carrying out all these assessments, remember I've said we assess the project's criticality, we assess the project's complexity, we assess the challenge to capability, we assess the project requirements. Now you get to the scope statement. Develop the project scope statement. At this level, you create a sentence or two. Create a sentence or two that answers the following questions. What is the project all about? Why are you executing the project? When are you expected to start, and when are you expected to finish? Who is engaged? Who are those involved in the project? The stakeholders, the team members, the workers. How much does it take to execute that project? Where will the project be executed? How many projects are you executing? And how do you know? How do we know if we achieved our goals? That's briefly stating how you're going to evaluate the project. Okay, so very important. So, in the project scope statement, what is the project all about? Why are you executing the project? When are you executing the project? Who is involved? How much are we talking about as far as the project cost is concerned? Where are you executing the project? How many projects are you executing, and how are we going to monitor and evaluate it? Okay, so we have the. It is also critical. It is also crucial to define what is out of scope. Say it is also crucial to define what is out of scope. Uh, some areas can be very close to the project, but you're not obliged to meet up with those areas. For instance, now let me use we have NGOs and associations. NGOs do almost the same thing as associations. Sorry, associations do almost the same thing as NGOs, but Now you have a situation where you have been assigned to execute a project, and the project requires you to work just with NGOs. You get to the field, you identify that you have a number of NGOs that are carrying out this activity, you have a number of associations that are equally carrying out the same activity. Remember, your scope states that you're working with NGOs. So you should spell out in your scope that you're not working with associations, or you're not working with human rights groups. Though they might be offering the same services as NGOs, please make sure you spell that, because they have similar activities. So it is important for you to spell that out, so your team members or every other person involved in your team does not derail. As well as, if your stakeholders or other members of the team want to expand the scope, they should first all know the limit of the scope, and then they know what they have to add to the scope. In setting up your scope, make sure that it is smart, it is specific, that is, your project should address a real business problem. Coming from a business perspective, let me say the project should address a real problem. Measurable. Are we able to measure the problem, establish a baseline, and set targets for improvement? Answer that question. Attainable. Is a goal achievable? Is a project completion date realistic? You cannot say you're going to construct a 10 kilometers road in 1 week. It's not realistic. Relevant. Does it relate to your organization's objective? Does the project relate to the organization's objective? Or because you have seen a competitor doing something, you just want to go and do it, and that is out of your business objective, or especially your vision, that is out of your vision. You just want to go around and do it because your competitors are doing it. You spell out if it is relevant. Yes. Set a time bound. Have you set a date for completion? If not, do that immediately. Now, after coming up with this, you have your scope, you've carried out your assessment, you have your scope statement, project charter. You produce the project charter. What is the project charter? A project charter is created at the start of every project. It is written by the sponsor and the project manager, and is in essence a contract between the sponsor and the project manager. So it's some sort of an agreement between the sponsor and the implementing organization. Okay, the project charter should have this. This is a format, or the format of a project charter. You have the project title and description, the project manager assigned and the authority level, the business case, that's the problem you want to solve, the scope statement, the product description or deliverables, high level risks, high level constraints and assumptions, and the signature. Remember, we are a consultancy firm, and as we said, whenever we enroll in any of our courses, if you want to develop any of these, if you face any challenges, always get to us. But before you get to us, do something we can only review. Then get to us. If you get to us, we should produce a project scope, a project charter for you. We are going to charge you for that. But if you get to us, you produce a sample, you produce something that we should review, we are not charging you for that. Okay, so the project charter, you have the title of the project, a project managers, you number two, a project manager, the recruited or employed assigned project manager, the business case, the scope. Now this business case is about the problem. What problem you're trying to solve with the project, the scope of the project, what the project covers, the product description of the deliverables, what are, if it is to build put up structures, spell them out, spell out the structures and then the capacities, yes, the dimensions and all of that. Uh, the risks involved, spell out the risks. When you spell out the risks, it will help the sponsor to equally shape his expectation from you and the high level constraints. What are some of the assumptions you're making? You might be assuming that you're buying all equipment at the market price, at the current market price. Okay, that's an assumption. You sign and it is approved. Okay, now let's talk about a very important component as far as project management is concerned. Project sponsors. Project sponsors. A project will hardly succeed if that project does not have a sponsor. Yes, a project will hardly succeed if that project does not have a sponsor. Remember, I said the sponsor is acting as some sort of overseer, control. You're responsible for reporting to that sponsor. So please let's take note and we should treat them well. We treat them well and let them know their roles and whatever they expect from us. Stakeholders. Failure to address stakeholder issues often lead to project failure. When we talk of stakeholders, we mean even the sponsors are part of the stakeholders. Your workers are part of the stakeholders. The customers are part of the stakeholders. The community where you're executing that project is part of the stakeholders. So if you don't address all their needs, appropriately, it's going to lead to issues, to failure. Okay. One of the critical factors for success of a project is to have spent time on defining the stakeholders. If you do not identify all the stakeholders, then those whom you have forgotten will be the ones who will cause you problems later on. We have seen cases where just because a board meeting held without a board member or a particular decision was taken without a board member, the board member had to withdraw his or her shares. You see, it's very, very common. Had to withdraw his or her shares and like leave the company because the decision was taken without his or her consent, all of that. So we should take note. Those who neglect are the ones who bring your downfall. We should be very careful. Even if you should ask them, what do you think about this? You take the decision and you don't implement it, but ask them. Yes. Even if you have a premeditated agenda already, still bring them to the meeting. Talk to them. They will feel concerned, they will feel involved. Yes. They'll feel consulted. There are there are several meetings I've attended. The meetings when I was still getting into the business field, or when I just got employed with Diligent Group as assistant manager. There are meetings that my bosses will just call me to come and sit in that meeting. Just that I should feel like I am very, very important. But at that time, I knew why they are bringing me into those meetings. Yes, and those it has actually trained me, and I'm equally doing same today. Like when I have if there's a particular decision to take, initially I sit back. Now there's a problem. I evaluate the problem. What do we need to do? I have I have persons. I have key persons in my team. I have key persons in my team that I expect, and they are like my backup. I know that at any point in time, if I ask them recommendations, they are going to give me something excellent. And I equally know that I have some people in my team, like they equally contribute, but when it comes to decision making, their contributions, their ideas are always like, so you understand, always still bring those people to the table. Still bring those people to the table. Trigger them to give the contributions. When they give the contributions, you conclude as the head of the team that this is what you have decided to do. In that case, they still feel belonging. If they feel to do otherwise, they will ask themselves, but the manager invited us to the meeting. We gave our contributions, the others gave their contributions. The contributions of others have been taken. It doesn't mean that we were rejected, we neglected. We were not neglected. Yes, you should take note. So I already spoke about requirements. These requirements we are talking now is in relation to the stakeholders. Now that we know our stakeholders, it is time to understand what their requirements are, what are their needs and wants for this project. Once we have identified the requirements, a useful exercise for the team to do is to analyze the requirements of the team in terms of difficulty in achieving these requirements and the importance the requirements will have on the success of the project. Yes. So thank you all. Please make sure you go over these notes, you go through these notes over and over to understand. So we are ending the session tonight with understanding our stakeholders, their importance, their requirements. Let me reiterate again. Make sure you meet the requirements of all your stakeholders. Do not neglect any of your stakeholders, else they will be the ones to bring you down. Okay, thank you all. Please do not forget to subscribe, click like, and find in forward your comments if you have any.